Today we're revealing the number one problem for every single team heading into this season. But here's the thing. No one team has the same problem, so there are 30 different problems for 30 different franchises. And oh yeah, by the way, I was in Charlotte for Media Day last week. We asked 6 NBA players 7 questions. Yes, those numbers were on purpose, and to find out their reaction, stick around for the end of the first segment. But if you never want to miss an episode, tap that subscribe button. Let's get it. Welcome back to another edition of the Hampton Show. Joel, how are we feeling today?
I'm feeling great. Media Day is all but done in the NBA. Preseason started. It feels like basketball is going to be here sooner than later, and this is the best time of the year.
It is. Today we're revealing the biggest issue for every NBA team this year. But first, we're starting with takeaways from Media Day. Joel, I'm going to read a statement, and you tell me if it's an overreaction, an underreaction, or a proper reaction to Media Day. The first one up is Kawhi and the Clippers look even more suspicious after their public comments on Media Day.
They do look even more suspicious. I don't think the NBA is going to do anything about it, though.
Yeah.
That's my intuition.
Yeah, it is. It is a tough look. Kawhi said, quote, "I understand the full contract and services that I had to do for Aspiration. I don't deal with the conspiracy theories and clickbait or journalism that's going on." That was the end of the quote. And then he proceeded to never answer what services he had to do or why there was no announcement or social media post or a commercial he had to do for Aspiration. He just basically kind of threw a bunch of smut on Pablo Torre's name and then kept moving. The most interesting thing to me was that whenever their GM, Lawrence Frank, appeared in front of the media, and Ramona Shelburne from ESPN kind of grilled him about it, basically straight up asked him, "Did Uncle Dennis ever ask you guys for extra incentives?" And he was like, quote, "Dennis and everyone here knows the rules." Then Ramona asked, "Is that a yes or a no?" And he just said, "Yes, we know the rules." And it was like, there was no clarity. I don't know if that's an admission. I don't know what that is, but the whole thing just makes them look even worse.
It's a bad look for the Clippers, but what's on their side is that Steve Ballmer is the richest owner in sports.
For
and
sure.
That is a big reason why Adam Silver is gonna, keep his mouth a little shut and not say nothing.
And I think the NBA just keeps waiting for this to blow over. And Pablo, I love how he's slow dripping this. We've talked about it, but I think he's sitting on something whenever a potential punishment comes out 6 months from now, a year from now, that after that punishment comes out, I bet he has a piece of information that's even more damning. And I wouldn't want any other journalists on it. I'll just put it that way.
I've kind of been shocked at people's reactions about it and calling him a snitch for doing what he's doing. I just feel like people have lost the value of journalism and the integrity of what the sport should be about.
For sure. Next Media Day takeaway is about Giannis, and this is the statement. Giannis will not finish the season with the Milwaukee Bucks. And to provide some clarity with this, the owner said, quote, "I've talked to Giannis, and he wants to be here." And then Giannis he got asked about that conversation. He said, "I don't remember that conversation at all."
I think this is an overreaction just because if he gets traded, it'll be next offseason. He's going to give it the entire year for it to work. And then next offseason, he'll get traded.
Yeah, it seems like a timing thing too. And these European cats, they are super loyal. You saw it with Luka. That's why he never wanted to leave Dallas. You're seeing it with Nikola Jokic. I can never envision Jokic on another team, no matter how that contract situation plays out. And with Giannis, he's had several times to leave now, and he hasn't done it. And I think once he signs up for a season, he will definitely be signed up for that season. But there's nowhere else to dig. If you're the Milwaukee Bucks, there's no other levels or levers to pull. They have done everything they can possibly do. There's no draft capital left. There's no young talent left. I think at the end of this season is when it happens as well. The next overreaction is about the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cleveland's injuries could hinder their season again. Keep in mind, they're going to be starting the season without Darius Garland and without Max Strus.
Not an overreaction, and they brought in another injury-prone player in Lonzo Ball. Cleveland this year, I think, is going to coast in the regular season to try to be healthy for the playoffs. Even though it feels like that's what they did last year. Ty Jerome was hurt, and they sat him, and they were cautious with his injury. Garland, unfortunately, just got hurt in the playoffs itself. But, I mean, this is just an injury-prone team at this point.
Yeah, it is. And whenever you're looking at the rest of the East, there's not a lot there. You're right. They're going to be able to coast, but we may have a championship prediction later in this podcast. I texted you yesterday about it, and I can't wait to talk about it. The final Media Day, reaction had to do with it's not a statement, but I was in Charlotte on Monday. We interviewed Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, Con Knippel, Grant Williams, Trey Mann, and Collin Sexton. I asked 6 players 7 different questions each. Yes, those numbers were on purpose. B Mill and Sexton were by far the coolest. I mean, at one point, I remember Brandon, he purposely was eavesdropping pretty much on every video. And then he also crashed the Miles Bridges interview. And by that point, it was actually time for him to come. I told him, I was like, bro, you've already done like half the interview. I don't know what else there is to do. And he still wanted to come and do it again. So I'm fine with that. Collin Sexton ended up chopping it up with us way longer than he was timed to. And I'm definitely a fan of Collin after meeting him. Super good dude. The Hornets did reach out about a collab on Instagram. And so definitely tap into my IG at Jack Hampton to find out when that drops. And also see all the pictures that are dropping from that on Monday. We'll also be slow rolling some videos out on TikTok as well at Hampton.sports on TikTok and at Jack Hampton on Instagram. Joel, you got anything to add, or you want to move on to the Atlantic Division preview?
We can move on to the Atlantic Division preview, but that was a great shout by you, the Charlotte Hornets Media Day. Being in that winning environment, at least that's what it's going to be soon. And yeah, a lot of good players they added this offseason. LaMelo Ball, hoping he's healthy. Brandon Miller stays healthy, and they'll have a big time season.
It was a whole lot of good vibes. I can't even lie. I feel like every media day is, so it's not saying much, but by far the funniest thing is like LaMelo was screaming in the background the entire time. Obviously, we couldn't grab him because he was busier than every other player on that roster. But he's a big little kid, and Brandon Miller is just like that. Makes me, we can talk about leadership. I don't want to have that serious of a conversation about them right now, but he's definitely hilarious. I remember we parked in the same garage as the players, and LaMelo has a Lamborghini Urus, like the SUV type thing, and the logo where the Lambo is supposed to go, he put his own logo there. So it's just the most LaMelo shit, and that entire franchise is just, it's hilarious to be around, and hopefully they can stay healthy and have a decent year in a broken Eastern Conference.
Yeah, they got talent, and they added talent too, and they have some help around LaMelo Ball this year.
Yeah, for sure. Let's stay in the East. We're doing the Atlantic Division preview this week. We're starting with the Boston Celtics. This is their offseason overview. They re-signed no one. They added Chris Boucher to a 1-year deal, Luka Garza to a 2-year deal, Josh Minott to a 2-year deal, and Anthony Simons via that Drew Holiday trade with the Blazers. They said goodbye to Drew Holiday, to Al Horford, to Luke Cornett, to Georges Niang. He was stopped and had a cup of coffee, and then Kristaps Porzingis in that 3-team trade with Atlanta. What is your number one thing to watch for Boston this year, bro?
How much they're going to tank. That's my number one thing. Mm-hmm. How seriously are they going to take the tank? Yes. Because you look at the top 3 in the draft, Cameron Boozer, DeBansa, Darren Peterson. There's a lot of talent here. And I think with Jason Tatum probably not coming back this year, although he's on track to come back. Like from all the workout videos that I've seen, the way that he's talked, it seems like he's fighting to try to be on the court this upcoming season. I think that if that does happen, then things obviously change and expectations change. And it really just matters on the timetable of Jason Tatum, because if that's the case, then a move to secure a center is not out of the realm of possibility at the trade deadline for the Boston Celtics to try to make a playoff push. But I'm fully expecting this team to be around 500, maybe below it, led by Jaylen Brown and Derek White, and Anthony Simons now brings that scoring punch. But ultimately, I think this team's going to fall short of making the playoffs if Tatum doesn't play the entire year, which I think is probably what I'm expecting outside the last maybe 10 games of the year.
Yeah, for sure. The Tatum being on the court already is insane. That video obviously went viral for good reason, but you brought up something specific in there, and it's their big man rotation. That's what I'm looking at if they're going to be at all competitive this season. They have Neemias Queta, Chris Boucher, Luka Garza, and Xavier Tillman. That's their big man rotation. Is that good enough to get you a top 8 seed in the Eastern Conference? My answer to that is no. And I don't know what they could do or package up in a trade to get a viable big man, but they're at least going to start with that rotation, and let's see how long they stick with it. What's your record prediction for them?
I think I'm going to go like 40 and 42.
Got you. I'm going to go 36-46 for them. I got them finishing third in the division. Let's go to the bottom of this division, the Brooklyn Nets. Their offseason overview, they re-signed Day'Ron Sharpe to a 2-year deal, Cam Thomas on a 1-year deal, Zaire Williams on a 2-year deal. They added Kobe Buffkin via that trade with the Hawks, Hayward Highsmith, Terrence Mann, and Michael Porter Jr. Said goodbye to Cam Johnson in that MPJ deal, D'Angelo Russell, and Trendon Wofford. What is your one thing to watch for them?
What young player steps up? Cam Thomas is back, so he's going to take a lot of shots, and Michael Porter Jr. is there as well. He's going to have the green light. But it's amongst the 5 players they drafted, which one of them is going to be good? Who is going to be serviceable? Yegor Djemin is the big headline because he was a top 10 pick, and he's probably is the one that I'm most interested in seeing. How can he physically transition to the NBA game? Can he improve his jump shot? Can he be that floor general that they drafted him to be? That's what I'm looking forward to. One of these picks has to pan out. It's just who is it going to be? That's my question for the Nets.
Yeah, I completely agree. One of them has to step up. I'm going to bring it to a much bigger conversation, though. Has any team had worse luck over the last 1 to 2 decades? You think about the Boston Celtics massive trade in the 2010s. You think about the expectations that came with Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and then James Harden that ultimately did not pan out and resulted in them playing 16 games together. Now, once you trade them with all those picks they got in those deals, they have not resulted to anything. So that's why there's even more pressure on this, because whenever I'm looking at or trying to come up with one thing to watch, I literally put nothing, because I feel like if you wanted to make a terrorist talk, you would show them Brooklyn Nets basketball this year. And that sounds bad, but that's how bad this team is going to be. What do you think their record's going to be?
I think they're going to be a 19-win team. I think they're that bad. And the difference between a franchise that's seen a championship and one that hasn't seen a championship couldn't be more glaring with a team like the Nets and a team like, let's say, the Lakers, where the Lakers, even when things look bad, when there's drama, they still find a way to try to make their stars work together. An example of that is Kobe Bryant and Shaq. They did not get along, and it was well documented. With the Nets, their window to win a championship, and it might be their only window in the franchise's history, was KD, Harden, and Kyrie, was that big 3. And they gave them 13 games. They didn't try to prolong it. They didn't try to make it work further than that timeline. They sold everybody cheaper than what their value was outside of Kevin Durant, but they gave up Harden for Ben Simmons and Kyrie for Spencer Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith. Their window to win a championship was in that era, and them not holding on to those 3 players as long as they possibly can just showed their inexperience in being around championship caliber teams. That was their best chance. And when is another time in history of that franchise are we going to see them have 3 players that are as talented as KD, Kyrie, and Harden on their roster at the same time? That is a once-in-a-generation thing, and they completely fumbled it.
Yeah, and we can sit here and look at the Milwaukee Bucks, as bad of a situation that they're in. We understand why they're doing everything they can to keep Giannis. We understand that, and that's why. And that Brooklyn Nets team is much more talented than this Milwaukee Bucks team. So at a much bigger level, yes, it was stupid in hindsight to do what they did, and I completely agree. I got them going 15-67 last in the division, like I said. Philadelphia 76ers is the next team. They re-signed Justin Edwards on a 3-year deal, Eric Gordon on a 1-year deal, your boy Quentin Grimes on a 1-year deal, Kyle Lowry on a 1-year deal, and they added Trendon Wofford in a 2-year contract. They said goodbye to Jared Butler, Ricky Council IV, and Gershon Yabusele to your New York Knicks. What's your one thing to watch for them?
If Embiid stays healthy, because if he does, it's going to be a top 5 team in the Eastern Conference. They have a lot of talent. Paul George, I don't think it's going to be as bad as last year. Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, McCain got hurt, so that's unfortunate, but Quentin Grimes is back. They have some good pieces on their team. I think trusting Embiid to stay healthy the entirety of the year is out the picture. Can he play 50 games? I think if he plays 50 games, this is a 42-40 team. I think they're going to make the playoffs, and I'm looking forward to seeing if they could just stay healthy.
Yeah, that's the number one thing to watch. It is health. It's the by far the hardest team to predict as far as a record total. I was looking at FanDuel and their number is 42.5, which is one above the Celtics, which I think is interesting. The Celtics are something that is pretty much on lock. We know what the roster is going to be, as decimated as it is. We at least know what to expect. With Philly, we have no idea what to expect, and that's why they have a similar number to Boston. I just put 39 and 43 because, to answer your question, I don't expect him to play 50 games. It's something I don't expect him to do. We're 18 months removed off a meniscus tear. He played, I think it was 19 games last year. He's only played in pockets since then, and I believe it will be the exact same way this season. Joel, let's get to your favorite team, the New York Knicks. Their offseason overview was this. They re-signed Mikal Bridges to a 4-year extension. They added Jordan Clarkson, Gershon Yabusele, and they said goodbye to Precious Achiuwa. By the way, am I reading this right? Did they add Malcolm Brogdon?
They did.
Yes, they added Malcolm Brogdon on a 1-year deal as well. What's your one thing to watch?
The ball movement on offense. How much Mike Brown unlocks this offense. And I've seen a clip in practice, and they're moving the ball excellently. I mean, I haven't seen that often in New York with Tom Thibodeau. Yep. But the Knicks are going to be awesome. They're going to be a 60-win team this year. It's going to be one of the Knicks' best regular seasons in NBA history. And this is going to be one of the most fun teams to watch, because I remember when the Kings were the number one offensive rating in the league, they were my number one league pass team that year. Now you bring that to the Knicks, that offense, with how fun it is, the Knicks are going to be must-see TV.
They are, and my question, or one thing to watch, is on the other side of it. Is their defense at least middle of the pack with Mike Brown? That's all it has to be, because now you're going from one pendulum to the next. The Tom Thibodeau offense was selfish, hero ball, but their defense was able to at least be good enough to get them into the conference finals. I need that defense to stay the same and that offense to accelerate. If that's the case, you're right. This is a 60-win team, and I will go a step farther than this, and I will say this is an NBA Finals team, and my prediction for the NBA championship in 2026. We have talked about this all offseason, how high I am on the New York Knicks. Not only did they get Mikal Bridges to take a pay cut, they filled their biggest two needs, and their biggest need was depth. They went out and did that in free agency, and their other biggest need was maybe a coaching upgrade, and hopefully Mike Brown is that. That's the biggest question mark of this team, but it doesn't deter me enough for me to not predict them to win an NBA championship.
I love the fact that you're going with the Knicks to win an NBA championship, going all the way in. I love it. I love it. We got a prediction. I was hoping we got one last week, but 1 week later is fine. You know, the season hasn't started just yet. Yeah, you know, you saw the Knicks clips in practice. You saw how they looked. You saw how they talked. I mean, that's a fine prediction to have, especially since you have the Nuggets making it out the West. And, I mean, I think that's a matchup that the Knicks could win. That Karl-Anthony Towns has always played well against Nikola Jokic. There's nobody that can guard Jalen Brunson on the opposite side. I mean, let's be serious. And we have the wings to neutralize Jamal Murray. So I think the Knicks winning the championship is well within reason and in the cards.
100%, and this is not an indictment on the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think the Thunder are going to be a force to be reckoned with for the next decade. The problem is what the facts point to. And the facts have been, over the last 6 years in this new CBA, there has not been a repeat champion. And every single year, whoever wins the title, we crown them, oh my God, they're going back to back. And OKC, it feels bigger than ever because we're in that moment. I promise you, last summer, Boston was the favorite to win the NBA title, and everybody liked their chances above any other team before them to actually repeat. And the year before that, it was Nikola Jokic. He was going to run through the Western Conference every single season, and it hasn't happened. So if guys as great as Nikola Jokic and everyone I just named can't do it, I don't know if Oklahoma City can recapture that, not to mention the youth of this team. And I have nothing against OKC. It was a great title run, but I'm not going to sit here and look over what everybody in NBA media has looked over. The fact that there were 2 7-game series they had last year. And the first one was Denver, who had a rotation that was mostly injured. Michael Porter Jr. could not lift his right arm. Aaron Gordon was on a limp hamstring. You go into the NBA Finals, their second 7-game series. That was against an Indiana Pacers team who had the run of all runs. But if you look at this Knicks team and what they can be, they have gotten better as well, and same with Denver and all the upgrades they made in the offseason. That is why my prediction is what it is. It's not an indictment to OKC. It's just the fact that we've had repeated evidence of not repeating in this CBA.
And it seems like the Knicks are emphasizing defense with Mitchell Robinson being in the starting lineup in preseason. Mm-hmm. He started with Brunson, Mikal, Cat, and Dottier. We know that's going to be OG when he's going to play. But it's a good sign. It's good that we see that Mike Brown is playing the young guys, having Dottier in the starting lineup, but also that we're going with size and defense and rebounding in that starting lineup, because his offense is going to be a lot of motion, dribble handoffs, big body, setting screens, getting space for those guards to dribble in space. So I think the Knicks have a real shot of making the NBA Finals and winning the whole thing.
For sure. Let's get to the final team in this division. It's Toronto Raptors. Here's their offseason overview. They re-signed Jakob Poeltl, Garrett Temple. They added, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name. They said goodbye to Chris Boucher. What's your one thing to watch for them?
It's a lot of different things.
I can start. I'll say this. It's spacing. Emmanuel Quickley is a 37% three-point shooter. That's the best on the team. Brandon Ingram's 36%. That's the second best on the team. R.J. Barrett's 34%. That's the third best on the team. Scotty Barnes, we know what kind of shooter he is, 30%. So when those are your top 4 options as far as spacing and shooting the three-point ball, that's going to be a problem. And as weak as this East is, how expensive their roster is a problem. And I think that's why it converts to a record of 35-47.
I'm higher on them than you. I think they're going to go 41-41. I like the Raptors this year. I think it's an odd fit, but they're good players. Scotty's a good player. Brandon Ingram's a good player. And Ingram now provides that shot creating that they didn't have before. RJ Barrett, I think, is the odd man out. He had a career year last season, but he needs the ball in his hands to be his most successful. Emmanuel Quickley, I think, is an average starting point guard, getting paid like a great point guard. He is overpaid, but he's still a good player. And then they have some nice pieces off the bench with Grady Dick, Colin Murray-Boyles, I was a big fan of out of South Carolina, and Jamal Shead, Magbo. Like, they have something brewing here. We just have to see how they fit on the court. So I think the thing I'm watching for them is just how well do they gel. And this is another team that another question for them is injuries, because Brandon Ingram has an injury history. Scotty Barnes last year had some injuries. Last year the Raptors dealt with their fair share of injuries. So I think the Raptors, if they stay healthy, they're going to be a good team, and I think they're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I definitely disagree with that. We can go through Eastern Conference teams if you want to right now, and you can tell me who you are leaving out, because whenever it comes to the Toronto Raptors, yes, BI solves a need, but it doesn't solve the need. He cannot be your first or second option on a good team. And Scotty Barnes is always going to be the first option, but BI is a second option we have seen. And that's why whenever it comes to the Raptors, it just continues to be over and over. It feels like the same season. They're just good enough to make the play-in and not do much else. So we all agree the Cleveland Cavaliers are probably going to finish over them, correct? The New York Knicks, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Detroit Pistons, the Orlando Magic, the Atlanta Hawks. I believe that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. And this is where it gets dicey.
The Miami Heat, 7. Do you want to have a conversation about Indiana or Boston? Take your pick. I'd go with the Raptors over Boston. I don't know about Indiana. I think Indiana's closer, but I could see the Raptors being better than Indiana.
Okay. So Indiana, Boston's a conversation. Philly, if they're healthy, that's a conversation.
Yes. If they're healthy, it's a conversation.
And I want to throw in the team I was just visiting. The Charlotte Hornets, if they are healthy.
Oh, yeah. That's a good bet.
And Philly isn't. We're going to sit here and not talk about like how Philly isn't. I let you go on your entire soliloquy about if this, if that, and you're going to sit here and troll Charlotte like that.
Hey, Charlotte, hey, will they have something brewing? We'll see if they can stay healthy.
You sneak this in their culture whenever I'm trying to talk about. I'm like, get serious. But anyways, so we all agree 7 teams are above them, so the eighth seed is the thing, and the conversation is between Boston, Indiana, and Philly. I like all three of those chances over Toronto.
So you think Toronto's going to get a top 10 pick again?
Yes.
Maybe. I mean, it might be the best for them if they do that, but I think this roster is a little bit too good to do that. I actually am a believer in this roster, oddly enough.
But what makes you believe in this roster? There is no spacing. There is no.
It's just mid. It's just mid.
Yeah, it's a mid-ass team that I feel better having Jaylen Brown and Derek White on my team.
Well, you have Scotty Barnes and Emmanuel Quickly and Brendan Ingram and RJ Barrett.
I want to hit that like
Yaka
LeBron meme right
Pirtle.
now. I want to hit that like
Yaka
LeBron
Pirtle.
meme.
They don't have a center. You know, these guys have Yaka Pirtle. The Raptors do.
Do you know how many times I've watched John Morant baptize that man?
Yeah, John Morant's John Morant. Was this years ago or was it recently?
No. You can say that again. Repeat that last sentence.
John Morant is John Morant. Okay, but how long ago was this? Was this years ago or was this recent?
I'm pretty sure it's been collateral damage year over year over year. It was not just 1 or 2 instances.
Okay.
But if you watch small market teams, you'd probably know that.
Yeah, maybe. I gotta tune into more Memphis games, I guess. I gotta watch more John Morant and basketball, Jalen Wells.
I can't wait for the content of this show whenever, the twice a year that the Knicks and the Grizzlies play, because I'm going to be so humble in my losses or wins.
Well,
I think it's going to be the other way around.
They had a game winner against you guys this past season.
I know. I'm aware. I was there, and it was heartbreaking. By the way, Knicks fans, I do want to give you all this. Y'all travel like no one else, because I swear to God, I was in like a Knicks student section whenever I was watching that game winner.
It makes the most sense. I mean, the tickets are less expensive.
For sure. And Knicks fans, by the way, are not nearly as mean as I thought they were. But anyways, besides the point, this is my Atlantic Division ranking as far as record goes, and based on our predictions. The Knicks 60 and 22 are at number 1. 76ers are at number 2, 39 and 43. At number 3 is the Boston Celtics, 36 and 46. Raptors at 4, 35 and 47. Nets at 5, 15 and 67. I know we disagree on the win totals, but do you agree on the order?
Yeah, it's pretty similar to mine. Knicks, Sixers, Raptors, Pacers, Celtics, I think are all in a tier amongst each other. And then, the last team, the Nets.
For sure. Let's get into the reason we recorded this podcast. The biggest problem for every NBA team this season. Let's start with the Atlanta Hawks. I think the biggest problem for them going into this season is the same as Denver. Their offense, whenever their best player is not on the floor. They're -10 without Trae Young. They need to find a way to fill that gap. That's why last week I was talking about a potential Kobe White trade with them, and I think that would make sense. You need a backup point guard that can fill that offensive void that kind of has not been there. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker's a great addition. I'm not arguing that. He's a great role player, but I think of him more as a defensive-minded guard, not a guy who can carry an offensive load without Trae Young on the floor.
The Trae Young list minutes has been a concern. They have more talent this year to deal with that. So my biggest question for them is just health. I think that's going to be a recurring theme with Porzingis and Jalen Johnson. That's what matters. And I think another question for them is, how big of a leap does the first overall pick in Ricochet take? I know the expectations for him are not that high because he was labeled a role player, and he played really well as a rookie, especially after kind of a slow start. He started to shoot really well. So Ricochet, if he takes another step in his game and they stay healthy, I mean, yeah, the Hawks are going to be a lot to deal with.
Yeah, I completely agree. And next team's the Celtics and the Nets. We both kind of covered there, and the one thing to watch there, the Charlotte Hornets are up next. I think the question mark at the center position is something I'm going to keep an eye on, and probably their biggest problem going into the season. Last year they had Mark Williams, Nick Richards, and Yusuf Nurkic all at different times in the season. This year they have none of those three. It's Moussa Diabate, Mason Plumlee makes his Charlotte return, and Ryan Kalkbrenner, who, by the way, in person is jaw-dropping as far as how big he is.
He's massive. The Hornets, I like their big man rotation, the potential of it. I like Kalkbrenner a lot. I think he has the size to be a good defender in the league. It's the fit between Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball. I think that you've gotten some splashes of them being brilliant without each other. LaMelo will go on stretches without Brandon Miller on the court where he's excellent. Brandon Miller's second half of his rookie season was excellent. It's about those two playing and fitting together and being a 1-2 punch for the franchise and leading them to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. I see eye to eye with you on that. The Chicago Bulls, biggest problem for them is they're starless. There's not a person that I can see outside of Matas Buzelis that can be a superstar anytime soon. And Matas still feels like he's 2 years away from being that. That is the biggest problem for the Bulls entering this season.
It's just the direction. Patrick Williams is on the worst role player contract. Josh Giddey got paid a lot of money, albeit that's the market for players that tend to not fit on other teams and they get overpaid. I get all that, and if he does shoot well, it doesn't look that bad, I guess, but it just feels like the Bulls don't have much of a direction, and it's really hard to see them having any sort of upside in the future unless they get lucky in the lottery.
Yes. Next team is the Cleveland Cavaliers. I put injuries plus their new depth. I mean, that's their biggest problem. Obviously, we covered Garland with the toe injury, Strus with the foot injury. Then we talked about it last week. Does replacing Ty Jerome and Isaac Okoro with Lonzo Ball and Larry Nance make you any better? And my answer is no. And you brought up something earlier in this podcast I had not even thought about yet, and that was, on top of the Garland and Strus stuff, then you add Lonzo Ball to that mix. What injury risk factor does that multiply? And that's something that I see as their biggest problem.
Perimeter defense is the biggest problem for me. That's what really did them in against the Indiana Pacers. They were playing hurt, albeit, but they don't have a perimeter stopper. DeAndre Hunter might be their best perimeter defender. Now it's Lonzo Ball, but you can't rely on him to stay healthy. So that becomes an issue. They have all this offensive firepower. They have the defensive player of the year in Evan Mobley, but they don't have a true stopper, and that limits the impact someone like Evan Mobley can make if they're always getting blown past by. We saw that in Utah, Rudy Gobert and the personnel that he dealt with. So I think that Cleveland is similar, not in the talent aspect, but just in the same theory where it doesn't matter if you have an anchor if you can't guard on the perimeter.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you saw that with the Grizzlies in the past year. Like, I'm not going to argue Jaren Jackson's a better defender than Evan Mobley, but still, if you don't have those perimeter guys, it does not result in success, especially night to night. Getting a guy like Evan Mobley in foul trouble when all that responsibility falls on his plate is not a recipe for success. Dallas Mavericks is the next team up. My biggest problem for them is they're playmakerless. Kyrie's out, clearly. D'Lo's not known as a playmaker or even a starting point guard right now. You are higher on me on Dallas for what reason, I don't know. But as far as putting all of this responsibility on Cooper Flagg as a rookie, I don't think is a very good game plan going into this season.
Biggest problem is health. Kyrie comes back sooner than expected. You have D'Lo holding down the fort until that time. They have Brandon Williams. I think they'll be just fine. Mm-hmm. They just have to stay healthy because their season collapsed when Anthony Davis went down. If he stays healthy, they'll be fine. But if he goes down, it's going to be trouble.
Did you see that picture of Anthony Davis, by the way?
I did not.
I just texted it to you. There's definitely people on Twitter like talking about how much weight he's gained and all that other stuff. He's listed. Yeah, Tim McMahon tweeted he's listed at 268 pounds, 15 more than last season's listed weight. And he says it's not unusual for him to report to camp this heavy. It's not a concern according to him, but he is 15 pounds heavier this season. And whenever I think of bigger guys that are now in their mid-30s, as far as big men who struggle with injuries, adding 15 pounds at this point in career, I don't know if it's going to result very well. And that's a testament to what you just said. Health is the number one thing to watch.
Yeah, it's we'll see how that affects his body. Maybe he wants to be more of a bruiser down low because in the past he hasn't wanted to play center because of the physicality of it. So maybe this is just in preparation for that if he does have to. But putting on weight definitely probably does increase injury risk. So we'll have to monitor that.
Yep, for sure. Denver Nuggets staying in the West is the next one up. My number one problem for them going into this season is Cam Johnson's availability. I think the trade, I would make it every single time. It allowed them to get a cheaper version of Michael Porter Jr., add the pieces they could without spending any more money than they already were in MPJ. But the thing I do want to say positively about Porter is even though he was always dealing with injuries, he did play 77 games last season and 81 the year before. He was available. Cam Johnson has not met that threshold over the last 2 years. It hasn't been, he's not missed full seasons and stuff, but it's not been 77 games and 81 games. So I want to see his availability because Denver is going to go as far as their health takes them, just like last year.
I think it's the 3-point shooting for them and the consistency. They have good players. We know that. And in theory, even last season, they had good shooters with Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray. Aaron Gordon has taken a big leap in his game. But in the playoffs, Michael Porter Jr.'s inability to hit jump shots with a shoulder injury really is what cost them, I thought. And it's about in moments that it matters the most, can they hit their shots? Cam Johnson is a good player. He hasn't shown to be much of a playoff riser and consistently knock down jump shots when his team needs to in a postseason setting. And Jamal Murray, is he going to get back to the version of Jamal Murray that we saw a couple seasons ago in the postseason? So I think they're not problems, but they're just question marks if this team wants to win a championship that they have to be answered in the positive direction.
Yeah, for sure. And one more thing to note here is Jamal Murray, as far as if he went down, who would replace him type thing. Because I don't see a viable.
Jalen Pickett.
Get serious. I don't see a viable starting point guard outside of him on this roster. So
Bruce Brown.
Let's get serious. They are a good team in my Western Conference prediction. They have to stay healthy. And we're going to say that a lot. Let's get into the Detroit Pistons. I just put there's no co-star for Cade Cunningham. I think this team will, if they stay the same as they were last year, they will automatically take a leap because of the injuries in the Eastern Conference, right? But I think that for them to be in that Knicks and Cavalier echelon, they're going to need a co-star eventually next to Cade Cunningham.
I think it's spacing for them. Yeah. Cade, Ivy, Asar, Tobias, Duran. Asar makes up for his spacing with his cutting ability, but at the same time, you need to be able to have respectable shooters on the outside, and I think that right now the Detroit Pistons don't really have that. Even Tobias, I think you kind of live with him shooting threes. You probably do guard up on them, but he's not an elite three-point shooter. He's just a good three-point shooter. So I think it's just the spacing around Cade Cunningham for him to operate at a really high level and not see so many double teams all the time, because that's what teams do. Teams are going to blitz him. They're going to trap him. And how can you avoid that? You get more shooting.
And nobody's going to be caught off guard by them this year either. So target on the back type thing. That can be added into their problems going into the season this year. Golden State Warriors, I think, is the easiest one on the list. It's age.
Yes, it's age and it's depth for them. Their starting two guard might be AirPods, and they're bringing back Kuminga, and he just was a negative player for them. They just don't have enough depth around their star players, and they're also aging, which makes things even worse. And they can't carry that big of a load because they're aging. So it's just bad all around. I think this is a regression candidate in the West. I like them a lot, but I can also see things going haywire just depending on how healthy they can stay because they're all older.
Yeah, and speaking of the West, I think a riser in the West, we all penciled in Houston to be a riser, even though they finished as a 3 seed or whatever it was last year. But it feels like every team Kevin Durant goes on, something happens. And Phoenix, yes, they're relatively healthy, even though they just did not have a good roster. Brooklyn, something happened every other week, whether it was Kyrie during COVID or injuries with James Harden. Now with Houston, it's Fred VanVleet's ACL tear. Not only that, the fact that Dorian Finney-Smith is going to miss the start of the season. So Fred VanVleet's atop of the list as, the biggest problem on the Houston Rockets, but Dorian Finney-Smith missing the start of the season definitely doesn't help. Amen Thompson, according to Ime Udoka, is going to be handling all the point guard responsibilities. But yeah, those two injuries are brutal blows.
It's ball handling for them and also spacing. But I think not having a true playmaker is going to hurt them. Fred VanVleet led the team in assists, and I'm excited to see Amen Thompson be a point guard, and Alperen Şengün is a solid playmaker as well. A player who can consistently dribble, drive, penetrate against the defense, and kick out to open shooters. Who is that? I think there's some upside with Houston, with Amen being able to do that, and also Reed Shepherd. So there is some upside if Reed Shepherd can get more inked into the rotation and play well, which I think if he gets minutes, he'll play well. So that's a potential solution. But Fred VanVleet is just such a vet that losing him, it basically nukes their chances of making a deep playoff run, in my opinion. Unless the leap that Amen Thompson takes is really out of this world, then I can see it.
You have to bank on the two things you just said: the Amen Thompson leap and then the Reed Shepherd leap. And we just haven't seen enough of Reed yet to be able to define that. If Reed Shepherd is not a black hole on defense, I think he will be good enough to be a starter, but until then, it's going to be definitely a uphill climb from there. Indiana Pacers, we've talked about this ad nauseum. Losing two starters is the biggest problem for them. They also had no replacement for Miles Turner. Obviously, Tyrese Halliburton's dealing with his injury, but losing Miles Turner as well and not really replacing him without, if you want to say Jay Huff's replacing him, I'm going to laugh at you. But yeah, that's the biggest problem for them.
The center position, that's it. That's the biggest problem.
Clippers, I just put one word: aspiration.
Age. Aspiration, age. Yeah. They're old. If this was a team in 2020, I think everybody would have them winning the NBA championship. Chris Paul, Kawhi, Harden, Bradley Beal, Zubac, John Collins. This team is really good on paper, and they still, even at their age, are a dark contender. So it's just age, but I think they're going to fit really well together.
Yes, that's another good one. It was crazy because of all this money laundering stuff through aspiration. It feels like it was even silly to ask them about what their expectations are for this season at Media Day. Just seeing every clip that I saw of a basketball question at LA Clippers Media Day, I'm like, I can't even think of anything outside of this scandal with them.
What were their answers to the questions?
Well, it was the Lawrence Frank thing, the GM. They literally had no answer. Kawhi just kept throwing smut on everything like that, but he didn't deny that there was a contract. He said that they didn't pay him and it was years ago, and he basically said, oh, y'all just found out about this was years ago. That's not a viable answer for any of this, saying that it was several years ago. It doesn't matter if it's circumventing the cap. It's circumventing the cap. Just everything that Media Day was very concerning. Obviously, Steve Ballmer did not speak at Media Day, and I think that anytime a guy like Steve Ballmer doesn't want to come in front of a camera, it is very concerning. And Mark Cuban is a kind of guy that always wants to be on camera as well, and he has been throughout this entire thing.
Mark Cuban has been at the forefront of defending Ballmer, for sure.
Holding water for another owner. It is what it is. LA Lakers, I put their number one problems defense. Whenever you have a backcourt of Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, and then LeBron James, we're talking about regular season LeBron James defensively, I think it's going to result in a problem. Jake LaRavia is not known as a defensive stopper either. Watched him for years not be able to do that. DeAndre Ayton's going to have to carry a huge load that I don't know if he is willing to carry after getting quit on by two different teams.
Motivating is going to be fine. I beg your pardon.
What happened to dominating then?
He'll dominate too this year. He's going to do awesome this year. But perimeter defense is their biggest problem.
No, we're not. You're not coming off on this. Why do you feel that way?
He's playing with Luka Doncic.
He played with Devin Booker.
It's not Luka.
Okay, that's fair, but whenever you are what you are defensively, can you not see DeAndre Ayton getting in foul trouble, getting frustrated with the lack of help defensively, and just not trying offensively and getting those rim runs that you get with Luka Doncic? Is that not something you can see happening?
I think DeAndre is going to be awesome for the Lakers.
I know you keep saying this, but you don't give me reasons. You just say Luka Doncic.
Yeah, I think he's going to be awesome because he's one of the most efficient pick and pop centers in the NBA. Since he's been in the league, he's been top 5 in field goal percentage around the rim. He's been a top 5 rebounder as well. And now you're playing with Luka, who's going to force feed him basically 10 points a night just off some easy gimme baskets. And then you give him a couple touches here and there. He's going to be fine. I think he's going to rebound the ball. He's much better than anything they had last year. And I think he's going to have a really good season. And their problem is perimeter defense. But I think that, as was shown before, if you can build a good roster around Luka, LeBron, Ayton, and company, they can make the NBA Finals.
No, we're not throwing Ayton's name in with Luka, LeBron. He's not a part of this, bro.
DeAndre Ayton made the Finals with the Suns in 2021.
That was almost a half decade ago. What has he done since then?
Half decade made it sound so much worse. It was 4 years ago.
It was almost half a decade ago. That's almost 5 years, is it not?
Listen, at the end of the day, he's not worse now. He's similar.
He got handed the car keys in Portland. He fumbled them. In fact, there was reports that he didn't even leave his driveway because he refused to shovel it to go to the game.
Dude,
that is the kind of culture you're bringing into this locker room. I know that LeBron is going to cover up all of that, but I'm not expecting anything out of DeAndre Ayton. If he plays 70 games this season and starts all 70, that's a step up from what DeAndre Ayton has been. I don't think you're quoting all these efficiency statistics. Oh, he's one of the most efficient finishers around.
You asked me to give you reasons. Who gives a shit?
He's 7 foot tall. I expect him to be that.
Okay, so you asked me to give you reasons. I'll give you reasons, and then, it doesn't matter what you said to me. I don't care anyway. He's supposed to be doing that. I gave you valid reasons as to why I believe he'll be good with the Lakers.
That's the problem, Joel. I don't think they were valid. So we can talk about it and discuss it. Because whenever you start bringing up efficiency with a big man, that is a problem in an argument.
In mid-range jump shots, he's one of the best mid-range jump shooters at the center position.
You don't think spacing is going to be a problem and he's going to be able to get those mid-range shots like they're nothing?
I think he will be able to get those. Reeves, Luka, LeBron, spacing is not an issue on this team.
Rui Hachimura, we can see how much you want to rely on that next to DeAndre Ayton and him shooting the basketball. But as far as like mid-range shots, I don't see that being a big part of DeAndre Ayton's game, especially with Luka Doncic. I see the rim runs and the shit that you talked about, but like I don't see that more than like 10, 12 points a game. You're sitting here acting like he's going to be a cornerstone of this franchise. You had him in the same sentence as Luka, LeBron, and then you said DeAndre Ayton and company.
He's in the same sentence as them every single night when they play. When they name the starting lineup, he's going to be in the starting lineup.
Okay,
he's in the same sentence
lineup, but you're talking about him as a third cornerstone of this team. You didn't even say Reeves' name.
Because
Reeves,
DeAndre Ayton, Reeves will become expendable to get a perimeter defender. I believe that.
Will he?
I believe that.
Can we talk about the actual market for Austin Reeves? Because I was told a few years ago he was going to get over $100 million, and it did not happen. The Spurs, a team who had nothing to lose, did not happen. What is the actual market for Austin Reeves, and what does he get you in return?
It's not my job to dissect what market exists for Reeves, but I know that he is one of the best he's one of the best third options in the NBA. He can get you something. He's on a contract year, so they might want to move on from him because they don't want to build around Reeves and Luka because of the defensive concerns long term. I totally get that, but overall, this is this all started because of DeAndre, and I think he's going to play fine. And just to put a bow on this entire conversation, do you think he's not going to average more than 12 points? Because I'll happily take you on that bet.
I said 10 to 12 points. I'm not putting a cap on it there. Look, we're doing...
We'll meet at 13. I think
we're doing guess points per game for TikToks later, and I just saw what Rudy Gobert averages. And if that guy can average that, DeAndre Ayton can average that. Gobert is a Hall of Fame player, an amazing defender, but we know what he is offensively, and we have seen what he can average. Yes, if playing with Luka Doncic may give him a boost in that, but he's not going to be a cornerstone of this franchise. That was my problem, and I'm not going to let you just slick Rick out of this Austin Reeves conversation. We don't have to talk about a market for Austin Reeves. You said they are going to flip him for a good defender. My question, let's not talk about a market. Let's talk about one team Austin Reeves fits on. Just give me one team.
There's a lot of teams. What team doesn't he fit on is the better question. He fits on every team.
Okay, just say a team that he fits on.
I think the Miami Heat, if they didn't have so many guards with Hero and Norman Powell, I think that would have been a good option for Andrew Wiggins. I think Andrew Wiggins is the dream scenario for the Lakers. I think that's the dream scenario right now.
My problem is every team I think of, I can poke a hole in, and that means there's no trade partners for them. I think they are locked into this situation.
Did you think they were going to get Luka?
No, I did not think they're going to get Luka, but
so that means that anything can happen.
Yeah, that's fair. It
They're
is
the
the Lakers.
Lakers.
Anything that's fair. That it is the Lakers. Anything can happen, but it is a problem. It is a problem. We knew Anthony
I
Davis. We knew Anthony Davis had trade value. We just didn't know it was that kind of trade value.
I
It's like whenever I can't think of one team that Austin Reeves fits on, that's a problem.
I bet you that Ayton will average 15 or more points.
Really going out on a limb there. 15
Yes.
points.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's good. That is good. It's not bad.
So basically this bet is over or under 15 points.
Yes. You just told me 13. I've raised it up to 15.
Okay, we'll take that bet.
All right, that's good. I'm going more on that. You're
Okay.
ready to learn some dominating.
I'm not just dominating. He called himself that, and that team shipped his ass off too. What happened in Phoenix? Can we talk about what happened in that playoff huddle as well? It's not only the on-the-court stuff, it's the off-the-court stuff that comes with it. And on an 82-game season, yeah, I would not expect him to show up and have over 15 points per game every single night.
You're right. Some nights I'll have 29.
Is Austin Reeves going to score any points?
Oh,
because
he'll do
in
his
my
thing.
head, I'm trying to do the math. I'm like, if Luka's averaging 30, if LeBron's like in the 20-ish range, and if dominating 18 points a game, is Austin Reeves just scoring 9, 10, 11 points per game? Or
He'll get his 18.
so they're just going to average 140 points a game, I guess. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get into another team in the Western Conference. Team is close to home. Memphis Grizzlies, their biggest problem is clear. It's a third scorer. I think the Grizzlies hope it's going to be Jalen Wells. Yikes. They hope it's going to be Santi Aldama. Yikes. This Desmond Bane trade is a deal you cannot pass up for what you got in return. Yes, it does not make them better this season. I'm not going to sit here and argue that. However, I think long-term they are in a better spot now than they were in. Because in an NBA where if you're paying three guys almost 80 to 90% of the salary cap, it usually does not work out very well, and they saw that and made a move. So their number one problem is to fill that Bane-sized hole being a third scorer this year.
I think the Grizzlies did a good job in their offseason. Yeah, KCP for Bane 1-for-1. That doesn't make you better, but then you take into account that Ty Jerome, you got him, and his per 36 numbers were pretty excellent, and he was one of the most efficient players in the league. Having him come off the bench and the combination of KCP and Ty Jerome maybe negates the loss of Desmond Bane overall. I think this team is just a little bit slow. I think that's the biggest thing with Zach Edey at center. I think it limits the way that they can play. Because he's such a big body and he can't really get out and run. I also think the spacing on this team is going to be somewhat of an issue. The overarching issue of the Memphis Grizzlies is that they are just mid. They are average. And we'll see if they prove me wrong and shut me up this year. But I just look at this team and I'm not inspired by it.
So shooting is an issue on a team that Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is now on. Ty Jerome
wasn't good last year as a shooter.
Did you watch Jamal Mosley's offense? Did you see that?
He got open.
Do we think that was a KCP problem, or do we think it was a coaching problem? Because every time we have an argument about Paulo and Franz Wagner, it's a coaching problem.
It was both, because in 2025, KCP actually shot well from three, so he bounced back.
Exactly.
But I think it's the Jokic tax, though. I think Jokic made him look really good. So.
What about that championship in 2020? Whenever he started on that team, played
with LeBron.
Oh, okay. So we're just gonna do that now.
It's LeBron, Jokic.
Okay. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is on this roster. Jalen Wells is on this roster. Ty Jerome, who you just proclaimed as one of the most efficient players in basketball, is on this roster, and spacing is going to be a problem. Okay. As far as slow, Ja Morant's one of the fastest players in the NBA. Scottie Pippen, a guy who dropped 30 in a playoff game. That happened and is a very fast player. I understand as far as like athleticism, as far as there's not any athleticism on this roster outside of Ja Morant. That was a problem last year. It was a problem defensively as well. Hopefully Cedric Howard can at least elevate that. Athleticism is a problem, but I'm not going to sit here and talk about speed and spacing. That is utterly
that's the speed is athleticism.
Ridiculous.
It's basically one and the same.
No, it's not.
Just athletic ability. You guys are a bit slow.
I'm talking about, whenever I talk about athletic ability, I'm talking about length, measurables, and everything that comes with it. I'm not talking about just, hey, run a 40-yard dash.
Well, Zach Edey has the measurables. He's just slow.
Okay, Zach Edey's not starting the season. He's not on my mind right now. It is what it is.
He's your franchise center.
This team is right. They're the middle of a pack Western Conference team, Joel, but like the problems you're claiming they have are not the problems they have. The problems they have is not having a third scorer and athleticism. Those are the two problems.
The problems they have are athleticism instead of speed. And it's third scoring instead of shooting. I got it. That's fine.
A third scorer is different from spacing problems. Don't act like that's the same thing, dog. Come on.
No, I'm not. I'm saying, all right, it's fine. I mean, your star doesn't help the spacing at all, though.
I can't wait for him to play 65 games this year.
Sheesh. It's going to be an exciting 40.
Make an all-NBA team again.
Wow. Okay. We're setting the bar high.
Make an all-star team.
Let's go, Ja. Okay. Listen, I love Ja Morant.
And then you have to talk to me every week about it. That's what I can't wait for. And yes, as much as I believe in the Knicks personally, they have expectations.
There's something to believe in.
They have expectations. And I don't have a massive voice in podcasting at all, but I love putting championship expectations in the minds of their fans, especially the ones I'm tight with.
So if they fail, you rub it in their face.
I didn't want to explicitly said that. You said that. I didn't say that. You said that. I didn't say that.
That's what you meant.
We'll move on. All right. We have the Miami Heat next. My number one concern and biggest problem for them is the Wiggins and Powell fit. The Bucks are next, and I put non-Giannis minutes there. Anything you disagree with those two teams?
Yeah, the Heat is just more offense, and I think right now it's really their defense that's a concern, the perimeter defense, because of Powell and Harrell starting in the backcourt. That's going to be really tough to deal with. And then the Bucks, I mean, what isn't a problem for them? Everything's a problem for them.
Yeah, for sure. Timberwolves, point guard depth. Mike Conley's aging. Which one of those young guys are going to step up? I think it's pretty clear cut there. Pelicans, I put this offseason. That's the biggest problem heading into this regular season because, like we said last week, Atlanta had to double check to make sure they got that pick unprotected. They traded an expiring in C.J. McCollum for Jordan Poole, who has 2 years, $65 million left on it. Now they're betting on JP to be a playoff caliber point guard for them, despite averaging less than 4 assists for them. They are also overloaded at center by drafting Derek Queen and signing Kevon Looney on a roster that already had Yves Missy. So I think this offseason as a whole, I didn't think that Joe Dumars could fuck up this team more than David Griffin did, but he found a way, and he found a way. And he found a way to fuck up his old job, too, by punishing players for hand signals that everyone else does. I don't care that it's my favorite player in John Morant. If that was anybody's favorite player, I think we all can agree how ridiculous those fines were for him when literally every other player was doing it. So he fucked up his old job, and now he fucked up his new job.
Yeah, I think the Timberwolves one is valid. They need a point guard bad. Conley's just not the same player anymore. And the Pelicans, it's just health. I mean, I want to see how good they could be if they're actually healthy. And Zion Williamson is going to take this year seriously because his contract and money depends on it. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play.
Yes, it is. All right, let's run through the last few of these. Knicks, we already covered it in the preview. Thunder, I put nothing unless you had something for them. Magic, I put 3-point shooting, which we can all agree on. Hopefully Desmond Bane and Tyus Jones can help that. 76ers, we already talked about with health. Suns, I put shooting guard overdose for them. Anything that stands out between those four teams: Thunder, Magic, Sixers, and Suns.
I think those are all valid. For the Magic, it's just a Franz and Paolo fit. That's probably the only thing I'd add, but I think those are all pretty spot on.
Trailblazers, point guard injuries are their number one problem entering this season. We obviously all know about Dame, but Scoot Henderson having a hamstring tear coming into a season that we expected him to take another leap is very, very concerning because those soft tissue injuries just do not heal up, bro.
The Blazers is just who's going to score the basketball.
Yeah.
They don't have a score.
None at all. Kings, no starting caliber point guard. They gave Dennis Schroeder all that money, and to me, he's not the answer.
Yeah, the Kings are just a misfit team. Yeah, that's it.
All right, final four teams. Spurs, I put backcourt overlap. Raptors, I put spacing like we talked about. Jazz, I put direction. And the Wizards, the number one problem I had for them was lack of scoring.
I think those are all valid. I think the Spurs won. I think the backcourt is actually a strength, but neither here or there.
Okay, so what's the biggest problem for the Spurs? If that's a strength, what's the biggest problem?
Shooting.
So you don't think that all the overlap they have there, Are we going to run through this cap percentage with De'Aaron
It
Fox?
wouldn't matter if they could shoot. If Stephon Castle could shoot the ball well this year, they're going to be pretty fine.
Joel,
Because Vassell could shoot and then Harrison Barnes can shoot.
that's what I'm talking about, though. The overlapping is not only of just positions, it's their skill set. That's the problem. It's they all do similar shit, and none of them can shoot. So
And nobody could do something similar to De'Aaron Fox, baby. Fox
okay,
is one
not
of one.
yet, not yet. That's not what I'm saying. But whenever you look at their guards' future, you compare and look at their skill sets. They are similar to De'Aaron Fox.
They can both slash, sure, but I think they're different. Like Fox is a natural penetrator. Stephon Castle is more of a traffic maker, directing traffic at UConn.
Can he shoot?
He was more of a 2. No, he can't shoot, but they play differently. Just because someone can't shoot doesn't mean they play the same. They play
but to play together, you have to have spacing.
Dylan Harper and Fox can both. I think they both play similarly. I think the slashing ability from both them, but Stephon Castle's a little bit different. He's a tweener. He plays point guard, but he's more of a shooting guard. But he likes playing point guard a lot. So I think that for them, it's just shooting at the end of the day. I think the backcourt for them, having 3 players that can handle the ball, I think that's a strength for them, to be honest.
All of these people, and I swear to God, this is not personal. All of these people who think the Spurs are going to finish above Memphis, whenever De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama have played, 4 games together? On it, basically, you have no data on it. And spacing is a problem. Overlap is a problem. And you look at games when Ja and Jaren are on the floor together, they win 63% of those games. I don't understand why that's an automatic thing and just nobody's concerned about the Spurs this year. I understand we have had teams take leaps. We look at the Kings, we look at the Rockets, we look at the Grizzlies 3 years ago. Yes, young teams have taken a leap. But the one thing that's different about this Spurs team is like all those pieces back then fit. Like that Rockets team was together, a unit, and same with the Kings and same with the Grizzlies 3 years ago. Spurs have a lot better top-end talent than all 3 of those teams. I'm not arguing that. Victor Wembanyama is a generational cat, but everywhere else, it doesn't make sense. Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell, the idea of them is a lot better than the reality of them being on your team.
So you're out on the Spurs this year?
I'm not out on them. I'm just not as high as everyone else. I'm not, and I don't understand why that's not okay. I really don't.
So it is okay, but so you don't think they're making the playoffs?
No, not in this West. No.
I mean, it's a tough Western Conference. I could get that.
I think they make the play-in 100%. They could be 7 through 10. They could be. I wouldn't be surprised they're 7 or 8 seed in the play-in, but I don't think they're making the playoffs. I don't.
We'll see if De'Aaron Fox has something to say about that.
Yeah, we'll see. And I'm going to call you in year 2031 when he's getting paid $61 million and ask you how you still feel about the contract.
I'll be like, he was better than John Moran at the time, so it's valid.
That's where we're in the podcast. That's why we're in the podcast. By the way, final thing, I've been meaning to ask you this. So whenever I was in Charlotte on Sunday night, I just landed chopping it up with friends, and we're at a sports bar watching Sunday Night Football, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, I wonder if Joel regrets his decision. Because to give a little context, Joel was a lifelong Jets fan. He gave over 2 decades of his life to the New York Jets. And then out of nowhere, week 1, they play their former quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. They lose, and he throws all of that out. He goes and buys a bunch of Packers gear. He's only posting about the Packers. He's posting cheese emojis. Go Pack Go. His co-host on the Hampton Show is commenting, wow, this shit is so inspirational, hard eyes. And now all of that shit has slowed down. I haven't seen it after the tie. And the last 2 weeks, they literally, lost to the Browns, tied to the Cowboys. How you feeling, Go Pack Go, man?
I'm still feeling confident. I just think they're in a bit of a dry spell, and it's just injuries have did them in. They've had some offensive line injuries. I think the coaching was conservative against the Dallas Cowboys, but an underrated aspect of it, football is all 3 phases: offense, defense, special teams. They have the worst special teams ranked unit in the NFL. They are 2 field goal blocks away from being a 4-0 team. They got their field goal blocked against the Browns. That's what cost them the game. And they got their field goal blocked against the Cowboys, and I think that was returned for a touchdown. So, special teams has been a big problem for them, and it shouldn't be, because Rich Bisaccia, who used to coach the Raiders, was a special teams coach. That was supposed to be a strength. He's one of the highest paid special teams coordinators in the NFL. So I think the Packers have a lot of room for growth still, But the special teams right now is underrated aspect, and it's not being talked about enough, and that's a big reason why they're not 4-0 right now.
We're going to sit here and act like you haven't watched all 4 of the Jets losses either. You weren't watching Monday night?
No, I watched part of it. But once the Broncos and Bengals game came on, I stopped watching them.
You watched the Broncos and Bengals over that.
Yeah. I had the Broncos defense in fantasy, so.
Makes sense. What's your fantasy record?
One league I'm 3-1. Two leagues I'm 3-1, and then I'm like 2-2 and 1-2 in the other ones.
How many people are in your fantasy league?
12 minimum.
Yeah,
everyone.
I can't imagine what your league and rosters look like. That would be slim pickings for sure. I would not want to look at those waivers at all.
You know, the waivers suck, but you gotta be smart and fast.
Tough ass seed. Well, Joe, I appreciate you taking time this week. Appreciate you being flexible as always, and we'll be right back here next week as we count down to the NBA season.
Anytime. Thank you for having me on.